So now I want to talk about defining some of the barriers and dispelling some of the rumors, okay? So first of all, they all must have PTSD, right? That's absurd. That's just absolutely absurd. Now some of them do, many of them do, frankly. Some of you people may. But that's true, because PTSD can happen if you're involved in a car accident, any type of traumatic event. The other thing I'll tell you is my wife and I had this interesting conversation shortly after I retired. And it went something like this. I was talking about PTSD and she goes, "You don't have PTSD." I said, "Well, why not?" "Because you're you." Okay? But aside from me being me, and you know me, why wouldn't I have PTSD? Let's see, I have 4 combat deployments. The last one I commanded an airborne combat engineer battalion. My platoon leader was blown up right in front of me. In 2005, I was involved in a vehicle-borne IED incident where my truck, where a car completely blew up about 30 meters from my... So why wouldn't I have PTSD? She said, because you're you. I said, well, you're right. Because by the time I deployed to the 3 of the deployments, I also went to Desert Storm. That was kind of much different, much easier way of fighting wars back then. The Army had invested about 20 years of experience in me. And so I was, I think, hardened and more callous, and so I was ready for it. Does that mean I don't have nightmares sometimes and remember the green flash and the truck, my platoon leader's truck exploding? No, I still do, but it doesn't really affect me. But I said, here's the problem, babe. If I'm Specialist Hussar, and you're Mrs. Specialist Hussar, he says the same thing. You don't have PTSD because you're you. And that guy doesn't have 20 years of experience. And so sometimes family members miss that, miss those signs. So just be aware of the signs. And if you see them, they can get help. And you can very easily deal, I won't say easily, that's not a good choice of words. One can effectively deal with those challenges. Now, in vet corps, it's pretty easy to deal with those challenges because they look at me and they go, "Oh, the CEO of our company's been blown up, so hey, he gets what this feels like, so let's just come in and we'll talk about it." And everybody around him does, and that's why I love this concept that we're developing here. But it's a rumor. The other thing I'll tell you also is the people who choose to go in the military are generally, they like outdoors a lot. You get a lot of hunters who have experienced and put their hands in flesh. And so that some of those things, I mean, it's kind of what we found, right? And so some of those things aren't as affected by that, which is a good thing. The other analogy I like to make is how do championship sports teams, for example, practice the 2-minute drill? You know, when there's all kinds of stress on them. How do they do well at the 2-minute drill? They practice it. They practice it. It's the reps that count, right? So in the military, they get a lot of reps. And there's some amazing things that we're doing now in the military. You go out to the National Training Center at Fort Irwin, California before you deploy, and you're blown up in an accident or whatever, and you know what? There's an amputee right there. There's an actor, there's a paid actor who's an amputee who has all this blood and guts thing hanging off his knee. You know, the young soldiers who've never been to the National Training Center just go, they think they're going to triage on, you know, on a doll or something, and then it's a real live person. And they're like, oh, okay. They find out the real live person doesn't have a leg, and they got some bloody gooey stuff sticking out the end of it. All of a sudden, it becomes more real. And so, let me reassure you that we're doing those things in the military to help deal with that. So, the more you can practice that, the better the reps. The more the reps, then the less you have to deal, the less challenge you have to deal with those traumatic events. So I hear that a lot. I do. I hear that a lot. So I want to dispel that rumor, okay? And if they do have challenges, there are ways to get help. And there are plenty of resources out there to get help.